Okay, so we're going to look at loop structures now. This is lecture 7. So in this lecture, we will discuss loop structures, our second class of VB structures for controlling program flow. So we also use the if-then and case, that they're kind of the same. So this is a different means of changing the program flow. We will discuss two broad classes of loops, for loops and do loops. And then we'll also talk about well, anyway, let's see what happens here first before we get into the details. Before we talk about it in general, let's get some example. So let's look at just an example first. For example, this one. Okay, so let's look at this. So what this said, first of all, you can see, you understand that we're defining a variable called total, and it's an integer, and we're giving it an initial value of 0. Okay, so total is our variable. And then we have this so-called for loop. It's called a for loop, or it's a for structure. You can see it starts with for. You can see that the keywords are for, to, step, and next. Okay, so what is this going to do? Well, let's read it. Let's see if we read it, if it sort of is maybe understandable in its English interpretation. So it says, for I as an integer equal to 1, for I as an integer equal to 1 to 10, step 1. Okay, that's not so clear. Total equals total plus I. Okay, so then maybe it's not so clear what this means. Unless you've already studied loops, then you probably do know what it means. So let's read it again. For I as an integer equals 1 to 10, that's how you read this. 1 to 10, step 1. Total equals total plus I. Okay, so what this means is you start with I equals 1, and you do something here, and then next we say you increment or increase I by 1, because it says we're going to increment I by 1 10 times actually. First I is going to be 1, then it's going to be 2, then it's going to be 3, all the way up to I equals 10. And it says step 1. If it had said step 2, then it would go from 1 to 3, and then to 5, and then to 7. But it says step 1, so it goes from 1 to 2 to 3. In other words, it's how big a jump you increment I by. And here, if it had said step 4, then it would go from 1 to 5 to 9, and would move like that. Anyway, it says step 1. So it goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. But anyway, the first time, it's 1. I equals 1. So what that means is first we set I equal to 1, and then we do whatever is in here. Then we're going to set I equal to 2, and we're going to do whatever is in here again. Then we're going to set I equals 3, and then do whatever is in here again. So what does that mean? So I equals 1, then what happens? Total, remember, was 0. Now, what we do is 0 plus I equals 1, we said. So 0 plus 1, so this is equal to 0 plus 1 is 1. So total now is equal to 1. So it was originally 0, but now it's 1. Okay, then there's nothing else inside the loop, we say. There's no other part inside the loop, just this one statement inside the loop. So now we go back and we increment I at a step of 1. So we started at 1, so now it becomes 2. And now we put 2 in for I in here. So total was equal to 1 before. Now we add 2 to it, and so we get 1 plus 2. So that's 3, so now total is equal to 3. And then that's all, again, that's all that's left in this loop, so inside the loop block. So what we do is now we come back here again and we increment I, what was it? It was 2. Now it's 3, right? So I equals 3, and this was what? 1 plus 2 was 3, I think. So now it's 3 plus 3, 3 plus 3, and so that is, so total is now 6. And we keep doing this, okay, until finally I is equal to 10. And then so whatever total was when I was equal to 9, now we add 10 to that, and total now becomes whatever it was before plus 10. And then 10 is the last I that we use, so now we can go outside of the loop. So now we've finished. So what we've done in effect is change the value of total to some new number. Total was originally 0, but we did this repeated process many times, and now total is a new number. So actually, if you want to see the final result, total is equal to 55 at the end. Okay? Actually, what happens next is I gets, no, he says the value of I equals 11 fails the test, which stops the loop. Actually, I don't think that's quite the right way to say it. It just goes to 10, and that's all. It just stops by itself. But anyway, okay, so this is an example of a loop, okay? So he says, example, calculate the sum of all integer values from 1 to 10. So that's really what we did. First we put I equals 1, so total was 0 plus 1. And then we added 2 to that, so we're taking 1 plus 2, and then plus 3, and then plus 4, and then plus 5. So we're calculating the sum of all the integers between 1 and 10, basically. Okay? And we use a for next loop, also known as a for loop, with the loop variable I to both index the integers while also controlling the loop. So I guess we're using it to index the integers in a sense, because we're using it here, but we're also using it up here. So this I doesn't actually have to appear down here anywhere, and so that's why he's saying we're using it to both index the integers that's here while also controlling the loop. This part is controlling the loop. Oh, maybe we'll talk about that again later. And the variable total is to store the sum, right? Total starts out as 0, but finally at the end, total becomes 55. Okay? The for loop's flow of control is clearly shown using a flow chart. Okay, so here we start out, the index equals the start value. So the index, I is called the index of the loop. This variable will be the index of the loop, so it's I. So I is the index of the loop. So index, we started out with the index equal to 1. We could have started at 2 or any other number, but we started at 1. So that's the start value. And then we have a decision here, right? This triangle, this diamond shape means a decision, and we check, is the index greater than the end value? So is it greater than 10? This is the end value. So no, it's not greater than 10. So then it's true, so it's false, so we execute this statement, right? And then we index, the index becomes the old index plus the step. The step was 1, so the index becomes the old index plus 1, right? So this, as we said, this now increments to 2, and then 3, and then 4. And so then once we increment or increase the index by the step, then we come back up here again. This is the loop part. This is what we mean by loop. And we check now, is the index greater than the end value? So I guess he could make this statement up here. Where was it? Where was that? I forget where that was, but oh, here. He says I equals 11 fails the test. So maybe he means you come back up here and increment and get 11, then it fails the test, so you end. You end the loop. You go out of the loop. So you could have other statements coming after the loop. You don't necessarily have to end the program, but you end the loop. Okay, so this indicates the loop structure in the flowchart. Okay, let's take an example. Let's try an example before we go back to the previous slides. So here's a simple example. Let's create a simple for next loop demo program. The goal is to display 10 short messages stored in a list on demand just by pushing the button. Strategy, use a loop to add our messages to a list box. So this is called a list box here. So we're going to use a list box. I don't think we've used that before. And the display will be automatic. Okay, let's see what we want it to look like is this. I am item 0 on the list. So when we press go, we want all of this to appear in this box. And you can see that something is incrementing here because it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. So we could probably are going to use a list to generate this output. Okay, in fact, let's just look at this for loop for a moment. This is different than the for loop we had before, right? This said for I as integer 1 to 10, step 1, total equals total plus I. This is a little different, right? It says for I as integer equal to 0 to 10. So before it said 1 to 10. That's one difference. Step 1 is still the same. But inside we have something different inside the loop, right? Let's check it. What did we have here? We just had total equals total plus I. Now here we have something different. So what are we going to do inside this loop? So first of all, it looks like we're going to be defining my string in every iteration. So that's a little bit strange, but okay. We'll see what happens. But it's like redefining the variable every time we go through the loop once. But okay, so we're going to do that. So we're defining a variable. It's a string variable. It's called myString. And we're defining it as what? Here's a quotation mark. Here's another quotation mark. Here's a quotation mark, and here's an ending quotation mark. And here we have a concatenation operator and a concatenation operator. And here you notice the variable I. Okay? Now remember, what is I going to do? It's going to increment. It's going to go from 0 in this case to 10. By the way, how many increments is that? How many steps is that? How many times is this going to repeat? It's going to repeat 11 times, right? Because it's going to be 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10 is 10, plus 0 is one more, so that's 11 actually. Okay, so anyway, so this is, my string is defined to be a string variable, and it's going to equal this. Now this is just a regular string, so that's just I'm item. But then here's concatenation, and I. So each time, well, in the first time, I is going to be equal to 0. So it's going to write I am item 0 in the list. And then, this is something new. We haven't seen this, but this is list data.items.add. So the name of this list control, this is a control that we're going to add to our program, and the name of it is LST data. So we use LST to indicate that it's a list box, and he gives it the name data. And then it has a, we're using the dot notation, and we're referring to the items in the list. So lists can have items. So this will be an item in the list. This will be an item in the list. This is an item in the list. So this is a keyword in Visual Basic attached to list boxes. And then this is a method, and this is a way to add an item to a list. Okay, so we're going to add this item to the list. The next, we're going to add this item to the list. So the list is going to have this and this item then. And then the list is going to have this item, and this item, and so on. So let's review it again. So for I, starting at 0, so first time I is equal to 0, what's my string going to be? It's going to be I'm item 0 in the list. And then we're going to add my string to this list box as the first item in the list box. Okay, so we're going to have I'm item 0 in the list.